that, I'll turn this over to Ken, and I will.
Okay, while he's getting up the presentation, I'd like to start by saying I want to make an interactive experience for you people. Cybersecurity risk is about your experiences. And so what I would like to do is, one, I'd like to get an idea of what some of you people do. Do you own your own business? Are you an employee? Are you insurance? Are you legal? So if we could just go around and quickly tell me, I know what you do. You make cookies, and you work for 10,000 small businesses. How about you?
Broadview Heating.
Broadview Heating. Do you own it? Or
I do.
Excellent.
I'm the owner of ID's Cleaning residential cleaning company.
Excellent.
Jessica and I own Becker Signs.
Becker Signs? Okay.
I own a fitness business.
Fitness business. Okay.
I work for the town planner.
Okay. Excellent.
Graphic designer.
Graphic designer?
Howard Hanna Residential Real Estate Sales. I'm an independent contractor.
Oh, excellent.
In sales.
You're in sales. Okay. So we have a good different distribution of companies. And the reason I like to know that is because the risks you face are going to be different. We all are faced with risk. You all can have a fire in your house or office. You can all get robbed. But when it comes to cybersecurity, the big thing, and I'll get into what this picture is about, the big thing is understanding your important position and what's important to your business. Let me start by asking a question. How does this picture make you feel?
Dread. Creepy.
Dread, creepy. We all know this is just an actor pretending to be a thief, but our feeling is that this guy's going to do bad things to us. This is what the cybersecurity world wants you to feel the entire world is like. Because their job is to get you to buy as much security as you can buy. The problem is, you have to understand the real risks that are in front of you before you spend money on it. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. We're going to talk about cybersecurity, we're going to talk about some of the risks that are out there. But I want you to all think, what's important to me as your starting point? And from there, the issue we want to try to get to is control over fear. If you're afraid, you take certain actions. Like that moment when you find out that your credit card was hacked, you can go into a panic. You don't know what to do next. You don't know how to deal with the problem in front of you. Most of us don't, because when you're in a fear state, you react quickly, you don't give a lot of time to thought. But if you can think about a situation before it happens, if you can be prepared, when it happens, you go into a reactive mode instead of a panic mode. And that makes things much, much better for you. This just says that I'm an old person that's been doing this far too long, but I have been doing this for 27 years. I did actually help the Cleveland Public Utilities work on their security before the RNC, and I am certified by DATO as a certified data recovery expert. But what do you care about? What are the things that are important to you? Tell me some of the things you'd like to learn today, if you could. Anyone?
Protect against those types of risks.
Protect against those types of risks. Anyone? Has anyone heard of ransomware?
Yes.
Yes. What is ransomware?
It's when they lock you out of something on whatever, and you can't get in until you pay money. And then they unlock it.
Okay.
Supposedly.
Supposedly. Hopefully.
Yes.
Hopefully. And I'll tell you why I say hopefully in a moment. So ransomware, and the worst version of it, which is called cryptoware, is when you'll see a notice that'll come on your screen that says, you have been hacked, you have to pay some amount, or you have to call this number. When you call the number, they'll tell you anywhere from $200 to $1,000 to get your data back. And if you haven't backed it up, if you haven't protected it, you have no choice. You either lose the data or you pay them. So it's always better to be prepared for that than to not. But I'll tell you, sometimes you can think you're prepared and find out that you're not. We had a client that used Dropbox to share their files across all 8 of their computers. One of their computers got a cryptoware virus. It encrypted Dropbox, and then it encrypted every other computer. So they lost all their data. Now, fortunately, they called me first before they paid the ransomware money. But I found out, I didn't even realize this, Dropbox does not, by default, back up your data. So he still had to pay $500 to Dropbox to get his data back. but we're able to clean off the computer and get that data back. If he could not have gotten that data back, he would have had to have paid the ransom people to get his data. The problem is, if you paid the ransomware, you're telling a criminal, here's my credit card information, or you pay with Bitcoin, here's my bank account information. Are they going to be ethical? Do you think these people are going to treat your personal data with any respect? Odds are no. If you are going to pay them, I recommend using a debit card that you buy, that you put the money on, that you can then transfer and then get rid of. It's not attached to your bank account. You want to minimize their ability to get there. Because the other problem is, they know that you will pay, and there's a network of criminals out there. You know, you can go online and download all the software to do cyber attacking. You don't even have to know how to do cyber attack. You can find people that will, you just pay them some amount of money, and they'll teach you how to cyber attack. There's a network of these people out there that are doing this. So now back to why you care. The first thing is, if you get hacked and they steal your information, they steal your bank account. In fact, somebody's friend actually just did get hacked. It costs money. You have to pay this money out. The second thing is, it can hurt your reputation. If you are collecting people's personal information, be it the state of Ohio, which got hacked about 5 years ago, or Target, people are going to be less trusting to give you their information. It can make it harder for you to do your job. This is the one that my wife told me. It increases your stress. My job is to help to reduce your stress. If you're afraid to click on things, if you're afraid to do things, you won't be able to sleep at night. And at the end of the day, that's the most important thing for me. And lastly, I put up here, it costs money. When I say it costs money here, what I'm talking about is, not only does it cost money if you get hacked, it costs money to stop hacking. It is expensive to put in all the security. I'll give you an example. One of my friends was the network director for Singular Wireless. What do you think it costs a minute for them to be down? Now Singular is gone, but that was his job. Somebody give me a guess at per minute what it costs for them to be down.
To do what?
Singular Wireless, if they lose a minute of service, how much that costs? It's $1 million.
Wow.
So every minute that they can't provide service is $1 million of loss to them. So it's worth a lot of money to get redundant systems to keep them up. Do you know how much money it would cost you if you couldn't get to your computers? Anyone? If you could not get to your computer, could you work? Could you make sales? Probably you could work for a little while. There's probably some length of time you could make some calls or keep operational for a little while. If you lost your customer list and it was gone, your QuickBooks, I don't know how many use QuickBooks. If you were to lose QuickBooks completely, what would that do to your company? Would you have a way to find out who owes you money? Would you have a way to find out what inventory you're carrying? When I'm talking about what's important to you, you ask yourself, what are the things that keep my business running and keep me able to work? How long can I have them down? And what will it take to get them back? If you can't get them back today, can your business be around tomorrow? That is risk management. Cybersecurity is the actions to protect against the bad outcomes. But before you worry about how you take the actions, you need to know what you're acting on. Oh, and this one we put in there, we're going to give everybody a chance today to win $5,000. So maybe somebody will get lucky. I love this. How many people watch Simpsons?
No.
What?
We're too busy.
Too busy. Well, let me tell you about this one. The question I have up there is it really worth the cost? This salesman was trying to convince Homer to buy a home security system. And he says, but surely you can't put a price on your family's lives. Homer's response is, I wouldn't have thought so, but here we are. I'm going to tell you a story, a real story, of several doctor's offices. Several years ago, they were just starting to move into electronic medical records. So they moved it off to the cloud, so now their business was dependent on being able to get to the cloud. The director told me, quote, we have to spend whatever it takes to keep this system up. So at that time, I put together a package to create redundant internet service. It was $4,000 a month. Say, I can't do that. I said, well, wait, you said whatever it takes. Whatever it takes is a terrible term. Anytime I hear that from somebody, I say, no, that's wrong. There is a value to this, and you have to determine it. We worked with him, and we decided that they could work on paper for up to 4 hours. And so having that redundancy became less important, because we figured out an alternative that kept them able to work if they had a failure of the internet. Because let's face it, as we start to move to the cloud, if you can't get to the cloud, you can't get to your information. So again, there's no difference. If I can't get my information, I can't work. How long you can't work is one of the determining factors of the risk. Now we're going to talk about technology risk management. And at the end of this, I'm going to give you an example that some people just think is horrible. First of all, technology risk management is not security. It is not recovery. It is not monitoring or response. What it is all of those. So when you're looking at your risk, you decide what can happen, how do I stop it, and how do I monitor it. Those are the 3 pieces. But you got to start with what's important. And that's one of the things that always kill me, because the security people start with what's going to happen. I have to stop ransomware. I have to stop hacking. Why are you stopping hacking? Why are you in a position where hacking is a problem? If you get hacked and you lose no data, no activity, and no service, has it damaged you? How much money should you spend protecting? But if you do have a loss, it becomes a big issue. So this is the story that I tell that I get some pushback on. I call it a baby with a gun. If a child gets a gun and shoots you, or a criminal comes into your house and shoots you, what is the outcome of that? What?
You're dead.
You're dead. You still got shot. Does it matter how you got shot at that moment?
No.
No.
I don't know.
But to protect against those things are 2 different approaches, correct?
You lock up the gun from the baby versus something else with the criminal. Criminal has his own gun.
Yes. So what it comes down to is, if you start with what you want to not have happen, then you can look at the steps to protect against it. But if I started with, I want to make sure that I don't get robbed, I may have a gun in my house. But if I have an unlocked gun in my house, I could get shot by the child. So you want to make sure you're asking, what is the important thing? When we're talking about risk, we're talking about your information first. So you start with, why is your information important? And then, what could hurt that information? When you start there, you start with what its value is. If you're a $100,000 a year company, you should not be spending $200,000 on security. You should figure, if I get lost, it will be about $5,000 that I have to come up with. I should be spending about $5,000 to protect myself. Those are the ways you use risk management. You figure out what's important, what's the possibility of it getting damaged, and then spend the money to protect against it. So these are the parts that put it together. Cybersecurity is keeping bad people out. And unfortunately, bad people can be employees, bad people can be criminals, bad people can be acts of accidental malice, meaning you clicked on something you weren't intending to click on. This is one that I always get after the fact. Backup and recovery. How are you protecting your information? And let me ask you a question. How important is the memo to go to the company picnic in your business? Probably not very important. How much money do you spend to protect that? Zero. That's what you want to think about. When you're doing backup and recovery, make sure the stuff you're backing up first keeps you working. And I want you to take a moment to talk about backup and recovery. When you're thinking about it, there are 2 stages of backup and recovery. There's how much data you can lose and how long it takes you to get it back. Does that make sense to everybody? For those that are kind of looking at me confused, when you back up data, how often it gets backed up determines what will be your data loss. So if you back up once a day, that means from the beginning of the day to the time you back it up, all that information would be lost if you lose your computers. The other question is, and this is one that I've been hit with, if you use Carbonite. How many people have heard of Carbonite?
What is it?
Carbonite. It's an online backup software. So you're taking your information from your computer and you're putting it up in the cloud. If you have 50 gig of data, how long do you think that's going to take you to bring back down from Carbonite? A couple days. So when you're thinking about your backup and recovery, can you be down for a couple days? So that's how long it's going to take if you lose your whole computer. So when you're thinking about these risks and how to mitigate them, you have to ask yourself, what is the time of recovery? What is the loss of data? Cryptoware people assume that you don't back up your data securely, and therefore, you have to get it back. Loss of data is too high. So when you're talking about backup and recovery, always think of it from 2 steps. What can I lose? How long can I not have it? And the last one is monitoring. If you don't know something bad's happening, you can't protect against it. If somebody's embezzling from your company and you don't see it, you can't protect it. And I'll give you a strange example. I can say this company name now because they're out of business. Broadview Laboratories was a pharmaceutical on the east side. I was their network administrator. Do you know they gave me rights to create, print, and I didn't directly sign, but they had electronic signing of all of their checks. I could have written a check to myself for any amount of money, reconciled it in the account so that it wasn't shown, and it wouldn't become available until the end of the month. Do you know, I brought this to their CFO and said, this is a bad thing. You can't do this. I could steal from you and you would never know. And his answer was, but we trust you.
Oh, no, that's not a security.
Please, don't trust me. I am going to try and be as honest as possible, but if I bring a risk to you, do something about it. What should have happened was they should have had somebody in finance print the checks. I created the database, they printed the checks, and then neither one of us could have gotten away with changing the outcome. Because if I can change the file, I can do whatever I want. Security is very much dependent on how much you take it to. But his attitude was, and this is where risk management comes in, he didn't care. He felt that I was that trustworthy, it didn't matter. Not what I would recommend as a solution. Okay. So now the question is, where do we get attacked from? Almost half of data loss comes from employees. And everybody thinks that's that angry employee that wants to destroy you. A lot of it is that accidental employee that clicks on that email that said, you have a cryptoware virus, click here to change your password, and they open the door. Fort Knox is only secure if you keep the doors closed. So one of the things I try to tell people is, always teach your employees first. You can save yourself a lot of money on cybersecurity if you take a little time to talk to the employees and say, if you see something that says change your password, don't click on that. Go to the site that you're supposed to change your password and see if it's asking you to change your password. If you have a question, ask. Your bank, your financial, they will be glad to tell you if you need to take some action. In fact, they're going to be happier. Most of my customers have learned if they get something, they call me. And I do have a, coming up here, a slide that talks about that. But teaching your employees to be the easiest way to increase your protection. Teach them about passwords. Don't use your last name as your password. Don't put your password underneath your keyboard. Again, when I was at Broadview Labs, I literally walked around as a network administrator, lifted up the keyboard and said, oh look, your password. The answer was, I can't remember all the passwords. The truth is, I can't either. I have 185 passwords I have to maintain. I can't remember them all. We went to LastPass. How many of you know what LastPass is? LastPass is a password management software. It will help keep all of those passwords. It'll even generate, yes.
I'm not hearing what you're saying is called.
Last, L-A-S-T, LastPass.
Okay, thanks.
I have a question for you. They were just breached about 3 months ago. LastPass. So what happens if somebody breaches that? Then they have all your passwords.
But LastPass actually is independent. They can't see your passwords. So if it got breached, depending on what was breached, it would only release a certain subset of it. But and there are risks, and I'll tell you that straight out. There are risks involved in everything. Nothing is unpenetrable. That's the one thing, when you talk about risk, it's mitigating the risk. But let me ask you a question. Do you think having LastPass get hacked, or using the exact same password for all your bank accounts, your Facebook, because Facebook's going to get hacked a lot easier than LastPass. And it's interesting, and I have to look because I didn't see that report.
Yeah.
But I know like LastPass, they encrypt your information to you. If you lose your password, they can't recover it. They can't recover your data. So you do have to keep your LastPass password very safe. Because once it's gone, it's gone. And the reason for that is to help protect. Because unfortunately, if everything's in one place and available to them, if they get hacked, it all becomes open. The whole point is to try to put it in as many buckets as possible, because it's hard to get into all of the buckets. But they can't get hacked. Everything can get hacked. And there are other password management software out there.
I use LastPass, and that's where, I mean, it's a great service, but
Yes.
when they get breached, do not lose your master password. I
Yes.
did that. Not
Yes.
fun.
Don't lose your master password. Again, it's to give you that level of security, but there's a cost to all security. That's what I tell people. Everything you do that protects you makes it harder, makes it more inconvenient. So you're fighting between convenience and protection. Okay, this is just some of the information that I'd like to give to let people know the magnitude of what's going on out there. It's kind of reverse of what I was talking about, looking at yourself first. 67% of businesses detected cybercrime. And I do want to tell you, a lot of the attacks are attacks of opportunity. I want to take a minute from this statistic and explain something to you. I worked for a large nonprofit, and we had it secured down, but we found out that the Chinese, and we found out it was the Chinese because you can track back IP addresses, the Chinese were actually attacking them. The Chinese didn't care about this nonprofit. They didn't care about the nonprofit's information. They were actually using that nonprofit to attack Target and Amazon. And the way we found this out was, all of a sudden they have a large internet pipe and it was getting filled up and used. What we found out was the Chinese were able to come in. There's a thing called a time protocol, which is, if you see that little clock down in the right-hand corner of your computer, that goes up to the federal government and asks for what time it is, so that they're all synchronized. That request, the Chinese were grabbing onto and bringing back to get through our security. And they were attacking a Unix NAS, which is a network access storage, which is basically a big hard drive attached to your computer. And then they were attacking Target. And I knew that they were doing this because we were watching and monitoring